Welcome back to my devlog for Mech Mercenary. Today I'm going to do a time lapse of me creating this mech head thing. Yeah, you're going to see me make a lot of mistakes, but let's just jump right into it. I sped this up, I believe 25 times on VLC. I'm just going to talk through it as I go. It's easier than using the video editing software and then processing and all that stuff. But anyway, you see real quick there, I had a pure ref with a bunch of reference images. I came up with the idea of making the mech more humanoid than some of the things like Armored Core games like that, where they're very much robotic looking. I wanted this to kind of look like it could be a human just in really heavy power armor, something like that. I'm definitely not a pro at this workflow yet, so you're going to see me making a lot of little weird mistakes. I do correct everything eventually, and if you keep an eye down in the corner here, you'll see like the amount of polygons. It gets kind of out of control for like a low poly thing, but I do eventually fix it. The reason is that I was kind of like making the head look like a helmet, and you'll see some of my references. It was a real brief flash in the beginning that I was looking at like the Marines from Halo, and by today's standards those are fairly low poly, but they still hold up today because they have this kind of like chunky armor look to them. So the sharp angles and everything from the small number of polygons, it still translates well because they look like armored Marines, even though they're an organic animal. And then like the difference is made up with texturing, so you can draw like faces on the Marines and stuff. Alright, so what you're going to see me fiddling with here is I'm even worse at pixel art than I am at 3D modeling. So there's going to be a lot of trial and error here. And I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with the textures. Like, I have all this wasted black space, and I do eventually fix that up. But the problem that I'm running into is with things with more detail, like a head and eventually the arms and torso, is that you have these kind of like, everything is snapped to a grid, like the sides of the head and the face and stuff. I mean, they're all just rectangles with very few triangles or trapezoids or anything like that. But the ratios don't always easily match what you can do with pixel art. So I kind of had to do a lot of trial and error here, and I did eventually come up with a solution. And that solution was, you can actually see me doing it there, is oh yeah, and I tried, I wanted to see what it would look like with glass instead of like a red dot camera. I do like that look, but I end up keeping the red dot camera. But anyways, as I was saying, so for like the things that are big enough, and the ratios are close enough to 1:1 or 1:2 or 1:3, something like that, I can use much smaller texture space. But what I can do is things like the side of the eyes, where you see all this dead space. What I was able to do is cut that off and then take like this face here and shrink it down to a single point, a single vertice. And then this spot, it only needed to be a 3:1 ratio to get the camera to work properly, or to look properly without being stretched. And so I made just that one a 3:1 ratio, and then everything else I just shrank down to a single vertice size, which equates to, well, it's actually negative space, or well, zero space, a point, infinitely small point on the texture. I just moved it into the spot that with the color that I wanted. So I'm not sure if I do it in this time lapse or not, but I do eventually fix the texture up. So this is what I ended up with. This is the texture. So this is the 3-to-1 ratio that I mentioned, and that corresponds to this here, obviously. But if I click this, you'll see I just have a single vertice, which actually has all the vertices right on top of each other on the black. And then to do some kind of like ambient occlusion down on the bottom here, I just chose the armor plate, but the dark spot, and I put that. And then up here on the light areas, so like on these triangles, these don't have like any texture space of their own. I didn't make like a triangle plate to put on them. But I just shrank them down and I used the light plate armor there. And then I don't think I talked about this, but on the sides I wanted to have like a vent, and ended up being a little weird. So like I tried multiple different ratios, and this wasn't like a completely standard ratio. But I did find that if I just made the texture, again, well, it's not quite 3-to-1, but I didn't need it to have like the full texture anyway, because since this angle is actually a lot less than what this one is, but I did that so that it could, well, I can actually just show it to you. So like as if I chose like the same angle, it just kind of like had those pulled off a little bit. So I was able to just adjust it by moving these vertices around a little bit. I do like the way it turned out. I'm not sure if I want to keep these as like vents. I don't think it would read very well from a distance. You can see some issues like as it moves from like far away. So I might just make it like a big, I don't know, a big hole, a big like a jet engine intake kind of thing. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that. But the armor plates, I do like the way that they turned out. I think it reads well from a distance. And having like the hood over the eyes just be a little bit longer, it does, I think it reads well if you're like looking from a top down from behind the head. Overall, I'm happy. I'm going to continue with this workflow with the torso and the arms and legs. Probably do more time lapses of those before I get into like actually importing it into Unreal and creating some logic. Oh, and then I also need to rig it and animate it and stuff. So yeah, we'll cross those bridges when I come to them. But next thing I'm going to work on is the torso, and then probably the arms and some weapons and stuff. And then we'll start working on like a walk cycle and aiming and stuff I can probably do procedurally in Unreal. But I may have to do like some blend spaces or something. I'll get into that later. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to end it here. I'll see you in the next one.